journalist. He is the creator of blackcoffeepoet.com. His writings have appeared in Colorlines, Extra, This Magazine, Red Wire, Anishinaabeg News, Toronto Star, the Kenyan Review, and Descant. Jorge has been mentored by Aboriginal writers. Monitored also. I don't know what you're putting out on stage there. But Aboriginal writers such as Marilyn Dumont, Lee Maracle, Daniel Heath Justice, and Simon Ortiz. So let's welcome to the stage. Okay, please.
Thank you. ANDPVA said they asked me if I'd talk just a little bit more about my process before I get into what I'm going to read. And it kind of goes with it. The piece I'm going to read is about mentoring. So I'm like I was introduced, I write poetry, essays, and articles for different publications. And one of the things that I do is I journal a lot. I have a your 99 cents, 140-page lined paper journal. I write in there every day, and a lot of my poetry comes out of the journal. So I recommend journaling a lot. I think about things before I write them, or sometimes I have to jump out of bed at 3 a.m. and write them, or I'll lose them. And so that's a little bit part of my process. And I've been very blessed and gifted that Lee Maracle has given me so much of her wisdom and time, and Marilyn Dumont, as well as Daniel Heath Justice and Simon Ortiz. So I'm very lucky that I've been mentored, and really mentored, not just via Skype. Not that there's anything wrong with that, or some kind of a long distance course. One-on-ones, in person, and I never had to pay. These people always gave for free. They gave themselves, they gave their time, they gave their knowledge, and I always like to acknowledge them. And so I really suggest, if you can, to get a mentor. And I'm lucky, I could never afford to go to, there's a lot of like poetry workshops or whatever, $75, $150, and I can't afford that, but I've never had to go because I've had these people in my life. So another thing is, so much has come my way, and every time, I would always thank Lee or Daniel, because they're the one that I've worked with the most. Daniel Justice especially would always say, you don't have to thank me. You're going to be doing this for somebody else one day. And that time has come. Somebody emailed me around September and said, would you be willing to mentor somebody in prison? I thought about it. I didn't know I was ready, and also I was, just being cautious for myself. I've also been incarcerated twice, so I know how I was, and you can be a very manipulative person, and I also know where I am now. And I said, you know what, just keep an open mind, and so I said yes, and I said, what's their race, what's their gender, what's their background? And she said, he's brown, he's 28, he's in there for armed robbery, and he's my son. And so I was like, whoa, this lady's asking me to mentor her son. So now the same thing that Daniel always told me, don't worry, you're going to be doing this for somebody one day, don't thank me. That's how you can thank me. That's what I'm doing right now. So that's what I do. I write a lot, I read a lot. I would always ask Simon Ortiz, kind of like, how can I grow as a writer? And I would be looking for these like kind of tricks and stuff like that. And there's no tricks. I would always hear, read a lot. So Simon, what? Read a lot. You know what I mean? And all these guest speakers that would come to First Nations, so I'd be asking a question, read a lot. So, read a lot. Read a lot, write, rewrite, reread. So like I said, this is about, this thing's about a lot of things. It's called the Bannock Teaching, and it was published in an anthology that came out in May, last May 2011, and it's called Crave It, Writers and Artists Do Food. And it's by Red Claw Press. And so same thing, I got my Bannock Teaching, and I was like, this was an amazing moment. And I just, I ran literally to a different room out of the kitchen, pulled out my journal, after I had my Bannock, of course, and journaled about it. And then I found a call on placesforwriters.com. If you're writers, look at placesforwriters.com. Different publications put call-outs and stuff like that, and that's where I found this. And then I saw the deadline, and again I just thought about it, looked for that journal entry that I did, and that's where this came out of. I actually went to a reading to support somebody, and then instead of going out for drinks with them, I went to a cafe and I wrote the piece and sent it in 5 minutes before the deadline, and 3 months later I heard it got in. So yeah, placesforwriters.com. Also, there's a Writers Festival happening at First Nations House in February as part of Aboriginal Awareness Week. Check that out. And there's a website called newpages.com, and if you look on the, I think, right side, it says calls for submission. Click on that, and there's more places that you can submit, as well as just so many journals in Canada. Look at those and find out their deadlines, and you can you know, submit something if you're a writer. So this is called the Bannock Teaching. First Nations House is quiet. The summer sees few students come around. Only the staff and the diehards use the space. The kitchen is used year-round by students heating up lunch, and when classes or the house holds feasts. Sometimes students and staff cook together. I remember watching Lee make bannock years ago. We ate salmon with fresh fried bannock. Depending on what nation you are and what community you're from, some folk call it fry bread. These people live off salmon. Salmon means more to the stolo than the bear, the eagle, than any other animal. Lee's salt and pepper hair hangs over her face as she rolls wet flour on the counter. Dry flour doused over the white linoleum top, there for the rolling, the molding, the prologue to her masterpiece. Lee breathes hard as her fingers pat pieces of flour together. She wears off-white capri pants with a pink tank top showing her brown arms and fingers. Those fingers that have written so many stories, opening the doors for so many young Indigenous writers. Those fingers that write poetry, roll poetry into flat pucks of dough, ready to be browned, solidified into oral goodness, perfect to eat while hearing a story. And with Lee, there's always a story. Lee Maracle, daughter, mother, grandmother, writer, mentor, and teacher. She walks into the kitchen with a pack of hot dogs, beans, and chili. I think I'll make bannock, she says. Round one, the checking of ingredients. Eyes scan cupboards, hands take the necessities down and pile them on the counter. Flour, oil, Magic Brand baking powder, you know, the yellow bottle with the brown sticker. Robin Hood flour, white in a yellow bag with a robin on it. The package hasn't changed since I was a kid. I am 36 now. Salt and water. Nothing in this world is possible without water. Lee has her own twist. Every bannock maker does. She uses mayo or yogurt once in a while. Not today. Round two. Fill the frying pan with oil and let it heat up while mixing the ingredients. Like the putting together of words in Lee's novels. Flour is put in a bowl and mixed with baking powder. Brown hands contrast white powder as the tongues of a fork scrape metal. Steel on steel, iron sharpening iron, cook teaching cook, writer guiding writer, a lesson following the classic rule of the written word. Show, don't tell. A new member joins the family, salt. Sprinkled from a shaker onto Lee's brown palm, then tossed into the bowl. The trio is then mixed and ready for the last relative, Sister Water. Waves of flour, baking powder, and salt swirl clockwise, becoming one, the pre-stages of our meal, the seed, nurtured by brown hands for brown mouths. Lee scoops balls of mix one at a time, rolling them on flour and then pressing them flat, similar to my brother when making Jamaican dumplings, then laying them to rest on the counter, 12 in all, each 1 inch thick, the size of her palm. The counter, holding the mini feasts, rests across the room from the stove, 4 steps to get from one side to the other. 4, a sacred number, food, a sacred item, sharing, a traditional practice. The Bannock teaching is ceremony, ceremony is culture, and culture keeps peoples going. Walking back and forth, moist dough in hand, 4 pieces filling the pan at a time. Hot sizzling oil becomes prayer. A 4-tongued fork tattoos holes in the middle of each piece. I do that so that the whole piece gets cooked, says Lee. She cleans as she goes, talks the whole time, holds a small while watching her creation, her teaching. We talk as we watch the bannock cook. Lee shares stories of the times she would sell bannock at powwows, 2 for $1. I'd make $300. That paid for the gas, the entry fee, and the food for the weekend. There would be lineups for my bannock, she says, while overseeing the bread being fried. You got to watch the edges you got to watch for the edges to turn golden. That's when you flip them, she says. 1 by 1, pieces get turned. White bellies disappear, and brown backs face us. Cash for gold is a new deal around town, advertised on posters, TV, and in the paper. Lee would make more than $2 for those these days. As the bannock gets cooled, one by one, Lee takes pieces back to the plate with paper towels ready to soak up the excess oil. You got to cook the ones you made first, so the last ones are given a chance to rise properly, she says. The next 4 are placed in the sizzling oil, one by one. 4 steps there, 4 steps back, 64 in all. 64 so far, 96 in all. I started making bannock when I was 4, standing on a stool over a wood stove. My mom would make fish and I would make the bannock. I'd make mush, oatmeal, too. Bannock and mush. We'd have bread once a week on Saturday. All the other days we'd have bannock, says Lee, as she watches the dough darken. It's second nature to her. No measuring, no worrying, just doing. Like putting pen to pad, fingers on a keyboard, bannock an everyday thing for more than 50 years. Round 3. The last of the batch. 12 pucks in all. The smell travels from the kitchen to the computer lab, the director's office, the seminar room, the secretary's desk, the library, and the lounge. People stop in their tracks, look in, and think of a question to ask so as to get a glimpse of the golden goodness, hoping for an invitation. You gonna be here till 5, Lee? Yep. Okay, I'll be back, says Sid. Round 4. Bannock stacked upon bannock, Lee taking 2 pieces to accompany the wieners and beans just cooked alongside her soft golden pucks. My brown fingers grab 2 pieces, and then the announcement is made. Bannock and beans in the kitchen, if anybody wants some, I say. Eager smiles turn up as people leave what they're doing to make the short trek to the kitchen, piece by piece leaving the plate, piece by piece in an act of sharing, thanks given to their maker through ripping, chewing, swallowing, and awing, ending the ceremony. Another teaching, Lee always sharing something, story, craft, art, tradition, ceremony, keeping us going, this time through bannock. One last thing, I always like to give a recommendation of books because I'm a reader. As I told you guys, I've been forced to read. This book right here, Not Banishing. It's my favorite book of poetry, my favorite book ever. It's by Crystals, who's a Menominee Nation from the US, or what is now known as the US. And she's queer, she totally challenges racism, she challenges colonialism, homophobia, and she's all about stopping violence against Native women, women of color, you know, all of us colonized peoples. And so you gotta read this book. If there's one book you're ever gonna read in your life, Black Coffee Poet says you gotta read this book. Thank you very much. Check out blackcoffeepoet.com and Black Coffee Poet on Facebook. I have a Black Coffee Poet YouTube channel, and I'm also doing a big week on blackcoffeepoet.com in support of and to stop the violence against Aboriginal women in the land now known as Canada. Thank you very much.